And welcome back to Skyrim on a Whim. I'm just kidding. Welcome back to Miniature Dragon Comic Review, coming to you live from the land of it's raining, it's sunny, it's raining, it's sunny, it's raining. And that was literally the last 3 minutes. Seattle, Washington. I'm your host for the evening, Daniel Doc Gentry. And with me is one of our gurus, Alex, because Woody is manning a booth, and a return guest, Keenan. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hi, thank you.
How's everybody doing? Where are you guys, Alex? Alex?
Alex?
Alex? Alex? Alex? I don't know where they are. Do you know what con they went to?
They were at, no, I don't know. I don't know what con. What's the con that's going on right now at the convention center?
Which one? Which convention center? That's the question.
WSCC, I think.
I don't know. He's making really weird faces, though.
He's making weird faces, and he's not saying anything. We're not hearing you at all. Sorry, Alex.
I think we lost Alex. It's very possible. Things happen.
We're seeing him. I'm getting video.
He's looking weird, though. Hi, Alex. We're alive.
I can't hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you, though.
Ah.
There's no sound.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Well,
you can't hear either of us?
That's what he's saying.
Well, it would be funny if he said yes.
So, we might be just seeing Alex and talking to Keenan today, which is very possible. Oh, there he is.
No?
Can you hear us now?
Yeah, buddy.
Good, because we're live.
Hey!
Where are you guys? What's con is it?
This is RenCon
Ren-
down in Tequila.
Down in Tequila. That's north of me.
Yeah. So the wonderful people that run D-Pad Games down in Renton do a convention by the name of RenCon. That and also Zach Labs. They do a lot of cosplays and wonderful, cool stuff.
So, as a guy who's done a lot of tabletop gaming, RenCon means something different to me.
I would imagine just a wee bit.
So, we got 2 comic books, and we are Woody-less again. I hope somebody's got some history behind these, because I still don't know them. Which we're going to be talking as Guardians of the Galaxy #1 and Scooby Apocalypse #29. The reason you heard me pause that is because I'm fully convinced that either I write dyslexically or Woody reads dyslexically, because the second time there was a 6 involved, I told him I couldn't read it, and he said I was crazy. And then I found the other one, which is an opposite 9, which works. So things are very possible here. Let's jump right in with a little Scooby Apocalypse. How about that?
Hated it. Unbridled hatred for it.
Okay, why? Go ahead.
First off, I hate the fact that they're trying to tell a serious story in the Scooby universe. Doesn't make any sense. I mean, they could have fun with it. They could do something with it that was actually interesting and fun to read, but it's not. And I don't know why Scrappy Doo is a thing. Where's Scooby? Where is Scooby? Why do we have Scrappy Doo? I don't know who that is or why. And then I don't like how it's drawn. I don't like how it's... Huh?
It is definitely quite an interesting, change of seeing, the very first issue that they did of this run, and then now jumping to 29. And out of what I remember, there was just... The first issue just had that basic setup of the apocalypse happening. Monsters coming forth to the world. Scrappy Doo was the normal pup that he was. And then the disappointment of the comic, I can't really tell you what really happened. It was... It's definitely for somebody. I don't think maybe the 3 of us.
Why are we reviewing this thing? It just looks like a terrible comic.
So wait. It's my turn.
Oh, sure.
All right.
and I thought it was a good comic.
Really?
I did, and I'll tell you why. Because I do things on a different basis, and I do it on a matrix because my background is mechanical engineering. It's what I know, and it's what I do, and data is my thing. And so I put it out as probably something a little different matrix than most other people do, which is what I usually talk about. Lettering, art, story. I didn't look at this as Scooby-Doo. I looked at this as a different comic book. And it used characters that I know. Now, I usually hate that. You guys know that about me. But what I hate is when you use characters that I know that aren't characters, their names. What do I mean about that? It's fairly simple. I hate it when you come out with the new X Factor man, and he has the exact same powers as Professor Xavier. But you try to feed them off to me as somebody else, or you give me somebody who can't die, and instead of killing them off or changing your story aspect, you do something weird, and you bring these things together, and I hate that. Hate it. I found this extremely fun, but I am a big zombie apocalypse person, so that might be the first thing of it. You could see it from a different point of view. I know, Keenan, you said you hated the art. I thought the art was unique. I didn't hate the art. I didn't love the art. It didn't blow me out of the water. It didn't make me want to pick up the comic book to just look at the art. But the art had a factor in it, which would, to me, have been, what can you do if you're, what's the next level of Scooby-Doo drawing? I understand we got a lot of questions, but I didn't read 1 through 28, so I don't know. I couldn't answer why is Scrappy here? Why are they talking about his pack? Like, where is Scooby-Doo? Why does it start off with Fred with the red eyes? Little things, but the comic book was really good for a zombie apocalypse comic book. It gave you enough information, but didn't give you all the information. It gave you tidbits of characters. It introduced things. It put things on a plot. And it's a story level comic book. It had some awesome storyline things. And like I said, the art wasn't bad. And so the third one is the text. And the text in the lettering was great. It wasn't unique. It wasn't anything disturbing, but you could follow it. You knew the narrative, and the people that were supposed to be saying the things were saying the things that they were supposed to be saying. It met the matrix on what I was doing, and funny enough, I seriously read the comic and was like, I bet you Alex is going to hate this, and he's going to be very, very interested to find out that I actually enjoyed this comic.
I think Woody's going to be fascinated.
It's about bringing somebody into the story. If you pick this up and you're like, oh, Scooby-Doo, and it's going to be funny zombie apocalypse stuff, you set yourself up for failure. I go to these comic books that I think I'm not going to like, and at least I try to wipe my expectations.
Let me stop you there. All right, let me stop you there. Okay, it's a fine idea to go into anything with no expectations set up. Right? It's a good idea. You're not set up for disappointment. You don't go into, Star Wars: The Last Jedi expecting to see something that is gonna, you don't go into that with Empire Strikes Back in mind, because you're gonna be disappointed. And hell, I was. But this is a Scooby-Doo comic. Wouldn't you go into this with Scooby-Doo in mind?
It's not
because
they're using
comic. Huh?
It's not. There's nothing in the title that says Scooby-Doo.
Why the fuck does it have the characters and the name on it then?
Well, and there goes our whole me trying to keep this kid related. With that big F-bomb, but it is what it is. It doesn't say Scooby-Doo. It says Scooby. I think that was primarily and specifically done with the intent of saying this is not a Scooby-Doo comic book.
Well, and then the branding misses me then. I got the wrong impression because we've got the Scooby-Doo characters, we got a Scooby-Doo universe apparently, and then we've got it's this tonal shift that's weird. I'll give you an example of this kind of thing being done really right, where it was done actually brilliantly, and that was the Predator in the Archie universe. Predator kills Archie, right? It was actually brilliantly done because they preserved the art style. Right, the art style was just the same. The tone of the story was just the same. It's just that there was a predator and it was killing people, and it was hilarious. Actually, it was really funny to watch. I liked it because it wasn't jarring. It didn't it you didn't have to take it all that seriously. It didn't really like add anything to the Archie universe that was special, and it didn't flesh out the characters at all. But you got to see the Predator doing Predator stuff in the Archie universe, which was funny. The juxtaposition was funny. It was fun. This, I don't know. There's nothing fun about it. The character drama kind of falls flat for me, and because it's Scooby Doo.
Yeah, I think
I can't take that character drama seriously.
But you hit it on the head when you said that. Oh, it was Archie, and it was fun, and it was somebody in Scooby Doo said, let's use these characters and really mess up that universe and make it a little bit more realistic than it has been. This is the Dark Knight trilogy of the Scooby Doo universe. Sorry, and some people are going to hate it. There's no such thing as a bad comic book. I try to warn everybody all the time before you come out the gates just yelling about how you hate something and blah, blah, blah. There really isn't. Somebody's going to pick this up just like I did and enjoy it and see the benefits of it. And again, I try to make sure that when I'm looking and judging comic books on this review show that I use a matrix, not my feelings, not what I believe, even though those come into discussions, but the things I judge the comic books on are threefold. It passes those three, and I liked it. I mean, it's a fourfold for me. It's not. I'm definitely not going to run out and buy the Scooby Apocalypse and follow it. I don't have the time for that, and I have to prioritize which comic books I have. But if I had an opening, I probably would follow this until somebody got a hold of it that was from the old Scooby universe and said, this isn't fun, it's not Scooby, let's change this back and be this humor, and then I would throw the comic book out because it wouldn't be what I was enjoying at the time.
Hey, fair enough. If you enjoy this, I wouldn't fault you for it, but it's not what I like out of Scooby Story.
Plus, I like it that Shaggy kind of cleaned up a little bit in this.
Fair enough. All right, we haven't really fully heard from Alex yet, have we?
No, I was going to bring it back to him. Go ahead, Alex.
So it's like, art style wise, I definitely have to say if it was its own different property, like if you just had this story with different names of characters, maybe that would be a whole different kind of beast. But it's like, art style wise, I like the way that it's illustrated. And maybe one of the things that I can say very similar to like Keaton of like having that mindset of the Scooby-Doo, when I read, I picture like, some of the voice actors sometimes, or like individuals that, like in my mind's eye, this is who's doing it. And Casey Kasem, the original voice actor of Shaggy, like any scene that he had in there, it's like, okay, this is what Fred sounds like. This is what Daphne. This is Velma. This is Scrappy, and that's my own fault. That's where it fell apart for me. But that's how I do. Like when I read Vader Down, like I was picturing James Earl Jones, like during the lines. And that's just how I am as a comic fan, as a person that, creative, a nutball that plays role-playing games, video games, reads comics, watches this various, pop culture stuff. That's just how I am. And that's what kind of made it distraction. If I just basically had it like, okay, here's this hipster voice, opposed to Casey Kasem, doing Shaggy, it might have been like one of those things of like, okay, I could have taken this maybe a little bit more serious. I could have gotten more into the groove of it. And, not seeing Puppy Power Scrappy in full like battle mode, might have also helped. And, so it's like, so that's my beat on it. Like, but as lettering goes, no faults. Like, good readability, and as like once again art wise, I thought it was a nice style. As overall comic book, I think it's mostly the attachment to, growing up with like reruns of the 1960s, right? Or was it 70s? The original series.
I think it was 70s.
70s.
Yeah.
So, like, seeing the original series, growing up with that, also seeing the various additional things like A Pup Named Scooby-Doo and all the other stuff that they've done with that franchise, that's where it has its problem. You know, where it's like, okay, I see these characters, and then now seeing them in this kind of new universe.
I get
Makes
it.
it a little kind of...
We could probably talk forever on this, but we do need to switch.
Okay,
Okay.
before we get off of this, I'm actually going to agree with both of you. The art and the lettering were both well done. It was actually the dialogue was not badly written. It just doesn't jive with the characters I know. So I would say that it's actually a well executed comic book. Taking it as itself, kind of in a vacuum, it's fine. It's a fine comic book. It's just the attachment to Scooby and that universe. That's just weird.
Well,
For me, that's weird.
and I think it's a good point. Last thing, and then I'll move on. Is remember when people start saying, "Stop messing with my movies I grew up with. Stop messing with the things that I grew up with," and you tell them, "Oh, suck it," or whatever. You just don't like it because of this. Keep this little tidbit in mind, because I don't think the reaction is that different. Having said that, though, let's move on to you want to talk about property and infringement as Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 1. Let's start off with Alex, because we put him at the end last time. Alex, what did you think of this?
So, this is kind of like, art-wise, very nicely done, really beautifully illustrated. Reading through the story, thought it could fit within the rest of the Marvel lore. You know, nothing seemed out of place. I'm definitely not a master at lore of Marvel, but doing the show and plus also reading various other books, I would say it's like it fits in with a lot of the stories that we have been reviewing, and also it feels like, okay, it was enough of like picking up and going like, they introduce who the characters are, and it's enough of like, oh, okay, I've seen them in past things, and also there's enough explanation to give them like, why are they in this current book? And the only thing was, it felt like it could have been a Guardian of the Galaxy book. It could have been X-Men with a Shi'ar. It could have been... It feels like a story that could have been for any Marvel property. It didn't feel like these characters were so much like how they do properties of like the original Avengers opposed to the Defenders. So the Defenders were... like, it felt like they just took a bunch of characters and meshed into a book. Whereas you had a team that, you know, like, these are the stories really going on, and, you know, the characters picked had a great purpose. I don't know. How did you guys feel about,
Well, I mean,
like, story-wise?
that's fair. It really is. Keenan, you can answer this question, but I'd really like to hear from start to finish what you thought of the book before we start.
All right. Okay, the book touches upon some aspects of Marvel lore that I don't really understand. I don't know where that frog comes from. I think the frog is cute. I think it's great. I mean, I've heard of the frog mainly because Woody loves that character. He's told me all about that, the little frog guy. But I don't really know what his story is or whether he really fits into this thing. But it's cool. All right, they got a thunder frog in there. Fantastic. The rest of it, oh shoot, let's see. The art was fine. I didn't have any problems. I didn't really notice the lettering, so I guess that's probably a good sign. And it looks like it's setting up an interesting story. It looks like the reveal at the end. Should I talk about that, or should I not spoil the?
This one just came out, right? I would hold off. If it was an older one, I say
Okay.
go for it. But
All right. Well, there was a reveal at the end, which is a little bit ominous, And of course, they're talking about an interesting point of lore that what I think that it could develop into a really interesting story. So I would read the next one. I'd say my only little gripe, is just can we maybe have some relationships between characters that aren't gay or lesbian relationships? Is that a possibility? Can we go back to maybe having some man on woman kind of action here? Can we get like some male and female characters getting married or getting involved? Because it just seems like they're hitting that button way too hard. The last Marvel comic I read, maybe that's a coincidence, but it was just shot through with all that same thing. I just why do they got to push that button quite that hard all the time? I don't know.
It's a good question. We can get there. Read through the comic. Just throw myself up on the tail before we really get discussing this. I thought the artwork was Thorish. It really is very unique to the Thor thing with people of power not having pupils and all those other things. I did have questions about, is this the Valkyrie or is this another Valkyrie spirit? I was really mad and ready to push the copyright button when they stole Thunder Frog and put him in the comic book for you guys. But, I understand there might be a little different stuff done with each one of these characters, and that definitely Thunder Frog just doesn't want to run around making frog noises. The story behind this is a modge-podge. I will give it credit that it does have setup. And which that I thought was a big difference between like Defenders and Guardians of the Galaxy and the Avengers Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy, everybody had independent books that worked up into it, or they were introduced into another series that worked their way in, and it told a story where Defenders was like, hey, here's the first book, enjoy, we don't have any explanation how we got to this point. And it's really weird like that. The art in this does not blow you away, but if you like Thor comics, the way they're drawn today, not the old ones, not the god Thor, but the Asgardian Thor ones, this is probably going to be right up your line, and you're going to like it, where it's funny that if you watch, the humans look more real than anybody else when they're drawing these out. It's just one of those things I picked up with looking at newer Thor books as well. The storyline and I'm sorry, not the storyline, the lettering and the story boxes, they all fit. It was really well done. It looked like it flew from one end to the other very continuously, and the story opened it up to have unique things happen, but I feel like it was clicky. At the end of this one, I saw that coming. It was one or the other, and the one I knew something was up, so it was what it was. The big reveal at the end of this is not that big of a reveal. It's just interesting tidbits that go into this. And the made-up lore, because that was the other thing we were talking about, it's funny that these lores don't exist, but then they talk about them like they do. I like it how they always have done that, because you feel like you should know, and then they start giving you little tidbits of the lore they're talking about. Like, well, we knew it all along. It's been in the universe forever, but you've never heard about it, but here's the thing. As an overall comic book, it's pretty okay. This is just another one of those, though. I'm wondering why they're calling it as Guardians of the Galaxy. It didn't feel Guardians of the Galaxy to me. And the topic that I've wanted to bring up a couple times before, because we're talking about this, is, and you guys can put it in, I'm going to free this one up for a second for you guys, but when we talk about popular comic books and people talk about, oh, I'm so excited they're doing X, I'm so excited they're doing this. Iron Man was a filler comic book. It was never supposed to make it. It was a joke that continued on and made a big widespread. Tony Stark was supposed to be a villain at the time. They wrote him in to be the playboy billionaire, and playboy billionaires can be anti-heroes, but they really couldn't be heroes, because what's the big thing that the whole world's against? Well, it's the big bad capitalist empire that's happening. And Guardians of the Galaxy was legitimately a filler comic book. It was supposed to be a comic book that they just kind of put out in between. They were supposed to be like Family Guy series. They weren't supposed to actually have a series. It was just supposed to be little stories and things to put out. That they weren't that popular. when they first came out, they weren't that popular until they made the movies. And then all of a sudden, everybody, I remember that. I was a fan. When I was a kid and I read my first Guardians of the Galaxy comic book, I fell in love with the characters. When I read my first Iron Man comic book, I said, that's stupid. I don't want to read it. It's just how it is. But bringing it up to it, let's go back. Keenan, you were asking questions. How'd you feel about this one? Let us know.
What? I mean, about as Guardians of the Galaxy? Fine. I mean, it's a cool little team up that they've got going. They do have that Thor-like art style going on, which I'm fine with. I like it. I think it's got potential to be a kind of a cool story. So that's about as far as it goes with me. I like the Bifrost shard powering their ship. I thought that was kind of a cool touch.
Actually, yeah. I'm glad you brought that. I would have totally forgot. I thought that was really neat, too. Wow, I agree with Keenan on something. Alex, what did you think?
The Bifrost shard was one of the coolest things within that book. That, and also it's like if you wanted to collect it for art, I would definitely say it's like that was a good book.
Yeah,
and that's about it that I can say on that one.
As Guardians of the Galaxy, I think at number one, it didn't blow anybody away, but again, it was a good setup before this, and like good comic books that bring teams together, it gives you tidbits of how things happen, including the Valkyrie mix up with the human whatever. But that just reminds me of another DC character that they totally screwed up when they brought him on screen, but I'm not going to go there right now. A question was asked about that at the very beginning, and I feel it's a valid question. We need to kind of touch on it, which is the I think it was the lesbian. We were talking about the Inhuman with the human earlier, right? That's what we were hitting on.
Oh, yeah.
The very beginning of the book, and I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. It amazes me that when you run the numbers, you're talking about people that represent less than 1% in what they say, and approximately 3% of the people that are hiding it. If numbers hold true with data of the population fall under that kind of banner, whatever it is. But I agree. It seems like these people are making a big uprising, and getting to the point where I'm wondering if to be a superhero, if you have to be LGBT.
Sure, or a minority or something, yeah.
It's just really weird. I agree that there's been a lot of stuff throughout history, but somebody asked me one time about when Black Panther came out, the dumbest thing I ever heard in the world somebody say was, "Well, thank God the black man has a superhero now," and I facepalmed so hard because
Jesus.
Throughout comic book history there has been awesome superheroes and awesome villains that represent all aspects of human life. And it was just one of those weird things. You get it a lot from Marvel. I mentioned this before. DC's kind of put a kibosh on this. They're telling people to stop shooting this stuff off on social media. And they're starting to bring it down to have a good mix. But again, I grew up, my favorite comic book when I was in my mid-20s, the only comic book I kept up with for a long time. I quit reading comic books altogether, but I stayed with Green Lantern. So I remember Green Lantern being a black man who was gay. I remember that before all this social justice warrior stuff, before it was cool to be on board with it, before you had to make a big deal out of it or put it in the face. Just like I didn't want to see Scott and Jean get it on in my comic book, I don't want to see anybody else get it on in my comic book either. But it is what it is, and we are in today, and some people might appreciate that they're doing that. And I've actually heard the argument, and I can't really argue with it, which is, wow, they've been doing that kind of forefront stuff with all the regular heterosexual relationships. Why are we having an issue with it, with this? It turned into a big discussion, but it was a good point, and I get it, and it is what it is. But I just wanted to hit on it because I just wanted you to know that it's not on deaf ears, and there are a lot of people out there that I talk to in the comic book and gaming plethora of people from all corners that surprise you with their answers when you ask why are they making big deals out of this.
Well, the only thing that I can add to that, I want to say real quick, is actually from Alan Moore. So within Watchmen, he was asked about the sex scenes that was in it from Owlman, and I forget the lady's name. But his point was, if the story actually calls for a sex scene, if the characters would actually do this realistically, like them actually experiencing a relationship, and it helps plot points, if it helps story, if it helps part of, you know, communicating that, yes, they are costume wearing individuals, but at the same time, they are people. And I think that's really one of the things that I feel like comics really need to do is like, okay, this is a visual media. Does this actually serve part of the story? Does this serve part of the plot? Does this serve the part of the characters' interactions of like getting a better understanding of who they are? For me, it's like, I don't care if they're straight, part of the LGB, or extended part of that. It's just the fact of like, okay, does this help get me a better understanding of like, you know, this is Soup, this is Superman, and you know, this is how he is, this is where he draws the line, or this is where he basically changes part of his story and becomes like Injustice, you know, becomes a tyrant. You know, when Lois Lane gets killed, there's a reason why he basically breaks his golden rule of being a Boy Scout and becomes a tyrannical dictator. You know, he snaps.
I think
but it's like within its character, it's a character-driven story that's interesting.
I think
not just this is a agenda.
I think you're hitting it on the head. Just to say it in a different way, if the story goes there organically, it makes sense. Yeah, if you put it on your storyboard that it has to happen, then you should question it, like, for further comics. But if your storyboard didn't have it on there and it leads up to it organically, yeah, I get it. I get what you're saying. If it's part of the story, well, make it the story. But if it's not part of the story, don't force it into the story. It's a beautiful way to put it.
But I totally agree with, like, the Scott Summers and Jean Grey of, like, great, they're having a sex scene. Whoop-de-doo. Just move on to the next part of, like, where the X-Men are actually going to go. Please.
I just black, please.
I just wanted to see him go to divorce court. I don't know about everybody else. But let's wrap this up a little bit. Final thoughts on the last two. Keenan, we'll start with you.
All right. If you're gonna play with a property, do something interesting with it that actually contributes to the property. I don't think that Scooby-Doo series is doing that. I think it's telling a completely different story in a completely different universe, and somehow it's gone and borrowed these Scooby-Doo characters in a way that's just incongruous. It doesn't seem to add anything. As for Asgardians, looks like it could be fun. I'm interested to see what happens next.
Alex?
So as Scooby-Doo, I very much agree. It's like, this might be up your alley. You know, check it out for yourself. This was definitely not a hot hitting for me. And as Guardians of the Galaxy, was not too bad of a fun book. I thought, yeah, your point of saying that it was a setup book, it'd be interesting to see, like, you know, next couple of issues are going to transform.
Oh, yeah. As for Scooby Apocalypse, I enjoyed it. I think that if you want to pick up something and I agree, not add into the universe, but look at the universe from a different perspective of being more serious, definitely a good comic to pick up, especially Zombie Apocalypse. Duh, who doesn't like zombie apocalypses? And then as Guardians of the Galaxy, you know what? I agree with what you guys are saying. I think it just needs to ride a little bit and see what's going to happen, because it has the potential to have great story. It also has the potential to be crappy, cliche comic book. But it did have a good setup. Like I said, they had all these little tidbits and they came from different comics, which anytime you do that is a great way to do that. But I digress off of that. Any final thoughts? Any big plugs for you guys?
So, very much, if you get a chance within the next 30-ish minutes, come down to South Center and check out Rencon. So, speed along.
Keenan?
If you go to Harborman Gaming on Twitch, at 7 o'clock tonight, I'm going to be streaming a D&D game with my friends on people from all over, and we're actually kicking off a new D&D series on Twitch.
Nice. So I will not be on for Skyrim on a whim tonight, which I actually was planning to, because I don't want to interrupt that. Please go over, check out, and support our friend Keenan and his adventures, and of course D&D. Duh. But anyways, as for me and everybody here, I just wanted to say, read more comics, keep it nerdy, and live your dreams.